All right, so today we're going to be looking at something pretty electrifying in a way. We're diving deep into poetry slam, but not the kind you might be picturing, you know?
Right, not exactly sonnets and flowers.
Yeah, exactly. More like electric eels. So someone sent us this really interesting piece of writing by this guy, Stefan Pinkwart, and Nod. He uses this whole electric eel metaphor for like how to make your poetry really powerful and impactful. And I think our listener wants to figure out, how can they bring that same kind of energy to their own work?
Well, I mean, you got to admit, it's a pretty unique approach, right? Like
Yeah.
comparing poetry to electric eels. But his point is that a lot of poetry is just kind of bland.
Yeah.
He compares it to a garden hose just kind of rambling on, and you forget about it as soon as you're done reading it or hearing it.
Yeah.
But a really great poetry slam, he says it's like getting zapped by an electric eel. It shocks you. It leaves you stunned. You can't forget it.
I love that. Okay,
Ah.
I'm totally hooked.
Yeah.
So how do we actually like channel our inner electric eel
Yeah.
when it comes to writing poetry? What's the secret?
Well, Pinkwart lays out 3 key lessons, and the first one is all about focus. Don't waste your energy. He says, think about an electric eel. It doesn't like meander around, it strikes with precision, and your poem should do the same. He even gives this example of an opening line that he thinks is like killer. He says, I killed someone yesterday in my thoughts.
Okay, yeah, that will definitely get your attention. It's not your typical roses are red type of start to a poem.
Exactly right. It's like, bam, right in your face. It's jarring, it's intriguing, and you immediately want to know more. Like, what's going on here? Who did they kill? Why? And that's what a strong opening should do, especially in a poetry slam, where you really have to grab the audience's attention right away. Think about how different that is from a poem that takes like 5 stanzas to even get to the point.
Yeah, it's almost like he's playing with our expectations, right?
Yeah.
You think you're settling in for a poem, and then bam, he hits you with this totally unexpected line.
You got it. And that actually leads perfectly into Pinkwart's second lesson, which is all about timing. He says, just like an electric eel waits for the perfect moment to strike, a poet needs to build suspense and create those like unexpected turns that keep the audience on the edge of their seats.
Okay, I can see that. But how does that work in poetry? We're not writing novels here, right? It's all about those short bursts of intense emotion.
Right. Think of it like you're setting a trap. You might start with familiar imagery or language, lull the audience into a sense of security, and then wham, you hit them with a twist, a change in tone, or a reveal that completely reframes the entire poem.
So it's not just about reciting words on a page. It's about crafting an experience for the audience, playing with their emotions, taking them on a journey.
Absolutely. It's that element of surprise, that jolt of the unexpected that really makes a poem stick with you.
Okay, I'm loving this. 2 lessons down, and they're both packing a punch.
Yeah.
So what's the final piece of this electric eel wisdom? It's the third thing.
All right, well, Pinkwart calls it shock them. He believes that the most powerful poetry slams are the ones that evoke strong emotions. The ones that make you really feel something deeply.
So it's not just about being loud or using shocking language just for the sake of it.
No, not at all. It's about being vulnerable, sharing a truth that you've never dared to before, something that really resonates with the audience on a gut level. He actually gives a really powerful example in his writing. He talks about that moment when you realize your parent isn't this perfect hero figure, but just a flawed human being like everyone else.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think we all have those moments where our perception of someone we admire gets shattered.
Yeah.
And it can be really powerful to explore those feelings in writing.
Exactly. It's about tapping into those universal experiences, those raw emotions that connect us all as humans, and then channeling those emotions into your poetry. It's not about shock for shock's sake, it's about using those intense moments to really connect with the audience on a deeper level.
I get it. So Pinkwart is giving us these 3 awesome tools: focus, timing, and emotional impact. But does he ever tell us how to actually put them into practice? Is there a formula for writing electric eel poetry?
Well, he doesn't give a strict step-by-step formula, but he does offer a lot of insightful guidance on how to approach each of these elements. For example, when he talks about starting strong, he really emphasizes cutting out all the unnecessary fluff. Just get to the heart of the poem immediately. Don't waste the audience's time with flowery introductions or long-winded setups.
So it's like being ruthless with your words, choosing each one carefully for maximum impact.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to timing, he encourages poets to think like a thriller writer. Build suspense, create those unexpected twists and turns that keep the audience guessing what's going to happen next.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
It really highlights how important structure and pacing are, even in a short poem. If you want to take the audience on a ride, make them feel like they're on the edge of their seats.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's that final element, the shock. Pinkwart believes that every great poem has this moment that just cuts through all the noise and really makes the audience feel something deep down. He calls it finding your shock moment, that truth you've never dared to say out loud.
That's so cool, the shock moment. It's like that pivotal scene in a movie, the one that suddenly changes everything and makes you see the whole story in a new light.
Exactly. And he encourages writers to really dig deep to find those moments. What are the personal experiences that have shaped you? What truths have you been holding back? What stories are just burning to be told?
I mean, that's where the real magic happens, right? When you
Yeah.
can connect your own unique experiences to these powerful techniques and create something truly special.
Absolutely. And that's what makes each poet's voice so distinct. We all have different stories to tell, different ways of using language, different perspectives on the world.
So it's not about trying to copy Pinkwad's style. It's about finding your own way to be electric.
Exactly. He gives us the tools, but it's up to each individual poet to find their own unique spark.
Okay, this is all super inspiring, but I'm also thinking about our listener who sent us Pinkwart's work. They're not necessarily trying to become a poetry slam champion or anything, but they still want to bring that electric energy to their writing. So how can they apply these principles in their own creative life, like in everyday writing?
That's a great question. And I think it really comes down to identifying your own electric eel quality. What is it about your voice, your perspective, your experiences that is truly unique? What truth do you have to share that will shock people awake, make them think differently, or feel something deeply?
So it's about finding that element that makes your writing stand out from the crowd, that makes it memorable, that gives it that extra jolt of energy.
Exactly. And that might take some experimentation. It might involve stepping outside of your comfort zone, being willing to be vulnerable, taking risks with your words. But ultimately, it's about finding that spark that ignites your writing and sets it ablaze.
Oh, I love that image. Setting your writing ablaze. And it makes me think about how relevant this whole electric eel analogy is in today's world. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information, with content, vying for our attention. It's so easy for our words to get lost in all the noise.
You're so right. So if you can find a way to be that electric eel, to cut through all the clutter and deliver a truly electrifying message, you will absolutely stand out from the crowd.
It's like giving your reader a jolt of energy, something that wakes them up and makes them pay attention.
Exactly. And that's what makes writing so powerful. It has the ability to move people, to change minds, to spark new ideas.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Pinkwart's approach, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember that you have that power, the power to electrify your writing. You have a unique voice, you have a story to tell, and you have insights that are worth sharing with the world.
So it's all about embracing those things, right?
Mm.
Not being afraid to stand out and take risks to really shock people awake with your words.
Yeah, exactly. And Pinkwart actually has this book called Poetry Master, and it might be a great resource for our listener, if they're looking for more concrete guidance on how to apply all these techniques we've been talking about. I think it could really help someone hone their craft and find that electric spark.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out, Poetry Master.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, I guess if you're out there and you're feeling like your writing needs a little more oomph, a little more settling, maybe it's time to embrace your inner electric eel.
That's it. Think precision, think impact, and think about those emotions you want to evoke in your readers.
Don't be a garden hose, be an electric eel.
Exactly. And remember, be creative.
Awesome advice.
Yeah.
Well, that's our deep dive into the electrifying world of Steven Pinkwart and his poetry advice. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little shocking. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.